Hello and welcome to
Okay,
another session of Streaming School. Thank you so much for joining us again today, and really proud to do one of our ESL GCSE lessons, because obviously there's a lot of learners who aren't able to access the normal ESL support that they have while they're in school, and so one of our colleagues, David, has kindly joined us from Japan to help in going through the basics of some of the ESL items, helping with introductory level items and then building through as well. Very good morning to you, David. How are you?
very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I'm well. I just realised I've lied to you. It's not the morning at all. It's now coming up to the afternoon. But obviously for you in Japan, it's the middle of the evening.
That's right. Yep, evening here.
Brilliant,
Cold
brilliant,
and
brilliant.
rainy.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us again. Really looking forward to having you, and enjoyed your lesson last time. And the floor is yours, as they say.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, hello, students. Today, let's pick up kind of where we left off last time, which is taking a more in-depth look at vocabulary and some of the tried and true practices to studying vocabulary for you. So let's start with the earliest stages now. So for phase one thing that's going to be really important for you if you're an early ESL learner are your verb conjugations. These are things that will take you quite a long time to perfect, and it really is important that you kind of memorize a lot of these. A lot of language will encourage you not to memorize. You need to use it in order to really own the language. Verb conjugations, however, are one of the things that most of us have to spend a lot of time memorizing in any language. And the way that we learn these conjugations in our first language, whatever your mother tongue is just by repetition. And of course, everybody is using the standard correct verb forms. And so we learn them through hours and hours of repetition. Well, when you're studying a second language, especially English, because as we will see later on in this lesson, there are some verb forms that don't follow the standard rules. In English, we have your rules and then your exceptions to those rules. And in almost every rule has an exception. So I'll highlight the time when there is an exception to one of these rules. So let's start with the verb to be, right? So this is one that you're going to see in most, if not every sentence, talking about almost anything. So this one is the simplest way to start is going to be with I am, right? And so we'll start with some very simple sentences. So I am tall, I am short, I am hungry, for example. These are ones that you're going to see all the time. You might even just use your name, right? I am David, for example. This is a very early stage. Now, it's going to change as soon as you start talking about someone other than yourself, right? You is are, right? You are big. You are small. Now, again, we're looking at just some of the really simplest examples here so that you can get started. And as we progress, we'll use a slightly more complicated, slightly more complex sentences for the later stage learners, higher level, intermediate. So he, she, and it. If you're talking about somebody else indirectly, right? This one is going to be is. So he is tall. She is short. It is maybe dirty, right? Learning some new vocabulary there as well while we go. Now, we. What form does we take? We follows you. So we are big. We are small. And how about they? Fortunately, they and we use the same style here. So they are fast. They are slow. So here, you're getting a good look at some of the most basic forms of verb conjugation. And these are ones that you're going to need, and you're going to use these in many sentences as you're studying language. And so these are what we call very high frequency words. You're likely to see them many times in reading, writing, and in all kinds of conversation. Simple conversation all the way up to high-level conversations. So how about do? So I do. So I do homework, for example. You also follows the same style. You do. You do homework. Now, this one starts to look a little bit different. He, she, it does. He, she, and it does. He does homework. She does homework. It does homework. It, I'm not sure what it would be. Maybe a robot, huh? A homework doing robot. You would say it does homework. Yeah? And how about we? We goes back to do, and they also follow the same as we. So that one's a little bit easier, right? We do homework. Or, talking about your classmates, maybe, they do homework. Okay, so now we're getting into one of these irregular. So these ones are unusual. These ones don't follow the same. We're talking about verbs, right? So if you get into a verb like eat, and you'll find many examples like this, and some of them differ in different ways. So you're going to have to pay very close attention when you're studying each and every one of these verbs. And I highly recommend that you use a table like this. If you're doing your studying, making tables, you're going to have a much easier time remembering some of the work that you're writing. And make sure that you're actually writing these short, simple sentences and moving up to more complicated, more complex sentences as you progress. All of this repetition is going to be very useful for you as you progress through the different levels of language. Okay, so let's focus on eat, something we do, most of us are doing multiple times a day. For those of you fasting for Ramadan, then you do it once a day, right? So, eat. So, I is a nice easy one, right? I eat fish, let's say. You also eat fish. He, she, it. Now again, we find some different forms here. Eats. We're adding another S on there. So we eat fish. I've mislabeled this one here. I'm not going to use this one for this one. We will have some examples of irregular verbs here. So we eat again. We eat fish, and they eat fish. Okay, so these are some really low-level standard, beginner level, standard verb conjugations that you can practice. If you're looking for information at a much higher level about verb conjugation, I recommend that you go to grammar.yourdictionary.com, and you can study a lot of information about different forms of verb conjugations. What we've talked about today is only a very, very simple version of that. What you're going to find is that as you get into higher levels and more complex versions of English, you're going to find some very unusual ones. And we'll go into those in later lessons so that this one can be focused on primarily beginner levels. Now, when we talk about just regular word studying, so random vocabulary studying, it's very important that you have some kind of a system for studying your vocabulary. My recommendation, and a recommendation that I know a lot of people who study many languages use, is something like this. Now, you can do this in a paper journal, so you can write this in your notebook. You can do this in Excel, or you can do this in Google Sheets very easily. And if you do it online, you're going to find that you have a lot of material, and you can just add new lines or new sheets for your Excel document or your Google Sheets document, and that's going to make it much easier to keep everything together in one place. The most important thing, however, is that you are doing this with some regularity. So if you're studying 5 to 10 vocabulary words a day, then you are going to start developing a high level of vocabulary very quickly. And you'll find that because, as we said with some of these earlier words, these are high frequency words, you don't have to repeat the old words so many times. And as you progress, you're still using the old words just as regularly, and you're also adding new words into your arsenal, so to speak. All right, so let's try famous. One plus for using the internet is that you're going to get all of the information that you need in one place, right? So for example, pronunciation.
Famous.
You get a nice pronunciation in there. You can take the phonemic alphabet and add it. Known about by many people, right? Okay, so I'm going to write that down. Known about by many people. Okay, so there, I've got my definition, my dictionary definition. Now, the nice part about using a dictionary definition is that you know the grammar will be accurate. So while you're studying the definition for a word, you're also getting very accurate grammar support. So please rely on your dictionary. If you use Google or if you're using some other search engine, that's fine. Or if you're using an online database, the Oxford Dictionary or Merriam-Webster online, that's a good resource. And you might also be using your electronic dictionary. You might have a portable electronic dictionary. All of these are going to be just as useful. The most important thing is that you are either typing out the definitions yourself or that you are handwriting the definitions yourself. Memorizing the definitions of words is useful to a point. Understanding how to use words and where they fit in, we call this part of speech, where they fit in sentences is going to be much more practically useful for you. So if you use the words regularly, you're going to own them, which means that you're going to be able to use them differently at different times for your writing, for your speaking. You'll understand them when you listen. You'll understand where they fit into certain sentences. If you're only defining words, you may find that it's still not that easy for you to use them in real time. So I highly recommend that you are writing down the words and putting your own sentences together. You'll see that we're going to be creating original sentences. So let's see what the dictionary says about famous. Let's see what the sample sentence is here. So the country is famous for its natural beauty. Okay, great. That's a nice, useful sentence. I can copy and paste it. That's no problem, but it's useful if I write it down, right? The country is known for, wait, what was it? The country is famous. The country is famous, right? That's our word. For its beautiful scenery. Okay, great. Now, I need to write an original sentence, right? So that I can get familiar with using the word. So let's make a very simple sentence. So, he is very famous. Okay, so I've got a sample here that is allowing me to use the word in a way that I understand it. Maybe the dictionary sentence is going to be a little bit complicated for me. This is oftentimes the case. And we'll talk more about dictionaries and using dictionaries effectively in a later lesson. That's a much higher level consideration. That's a much higher level topic. So he is very famous. Or how about she will be famous, right? We use words that we know, and we make sure that we include the vocabulary word in our sentences. And that's going to make it so that we're much more familiar with the word. And when we hear it in different forms or in different contexts, and we'll talk about context another time as well, when we hear these words in different contexts, it's easier for us to remember what they mean and understand the bigger picture, as we call it. The bigger picture means that sometimes we use vocabulary that we know to help us understand vocabulary that we don't yet know. So this is a very common way of language learning, especially for high school students, secondary school students. Okay. So it's also important that we know words that are similar and dissimilar, alike and not alike. And we have antonyms, synonyms. So how about some antonyms for famous? Let's start off with synonyms, huh? So famous, synonym. Well-known. How about popular? Popular is a word that you might already know. So if I'm putting my synonym here, right? Popular. Okay, that's useful enough. And how about some antonyms? Antonyms being the opposite, have words having the opposite meaning. So antonyms are insignificant. That one is a little bit tough for you, maybe. So how about typical, normal? Normal is maybe the best example there, right? So normal is a good antonym for famous. And if you're really excited to be learning new language, then you can make sentences using the antonyms and synonyms as well. That's going to be a big help for you. Okay, so in the last few minutes here, let's discuss articles. Articles are another very high level. They're very common. It's a very common element of the English language, but it's a very complicated element of the English language. And so your articles are the, a, and an. And you're going to see these in many, many sentences and in many, many different forms. And they can be very confusing for a lot of people. So I think that what we'll do now is we'll do a very quick sample of a and an, which are known as the indefinite articles. And we can talk more about that next time. And then we'll look at the next time as well. So if I'm talking about your standard nouns here, right? Standard things, cat, dog, tree, fish. We're just going to use a, right? A cat, a dog, a tree, a fish, a car. And then we have elephant. Well, what's the difference between elephant, car, fish, tree, and dog? The main difference is the first letter is a vowel. The first letter of umbrella is also a vowel. So these ones get a different indefinite article. And the article there is going to be un-elephant, un-umbrella. And the reason we do that is historical, and it's from the importance of separating these words. If you say a elephant, it can sound a little bit difficult when people are listening to you. So if you say an elephant, it makes it more natural. It makes your speech more natural. And there's more about that to come. And so when we go back to star, of course, it's not a vowel. So we're back to a or a. And if you want to know more about articles, you can watch a really good video on YouTube, and the link is there, and I'm sure that the link will be shared with you. Okay, so today we took a quick look at conjugating simple regular verbs. We stuck with regular verbs today. We'll do irregular verbs next time. And we looked at some usage of vocabulary journaling. And you can remember, do this digitally, or you can do it in hard copy on your notebook. And then we took a very quick look at your articles, English articles, a and an. We'll look at the, and we will look at different usages of articles in the near future. So be sure to check out the YouTube video for a more in-depth discussion, and you can look at these links here, this A4ESL and usingenglish.com. Those are some really useful quizzes, and they're quite fun, and they're going to give you a grade while you test. You can get yourself a grade, and you can do these online and for free. So that was another lesson for the stay-at-home period here, and we will see you later this week where we'll be discussing different topics related to English. And remember that you can always send in your requests, and we will do our best to focus on the various topics that you request. Thanks again. See you later this week.
Thank you so much, David. Really, really appreciate it, buddy. Yeah, that was really, really useful stuff. How are you finding lockdown in Japan?
Interesting. It's we got a lot of different things happening here, but fortunately, the grocery stores are running well, and people, I think, are beginning to really respect the need to stay at home and social distancing and everything. But yeah, we're fortunately in a nice enough place that we can, be calm and settled, I guess, more than anything. But we'll be very happy, I think, once if everything gets back to the way it was.
We've had in the UK, I would say, because I know you're in Japan. In the UK, we just had some news that we've had the first testing trials of a vaccine this weekend. So yeah, we'll just see how that goes. Hopefully, that will be the fastest vaccine released in the history of the universe. Then hopefully we can all get back to normal as soon as possible.
Yeah, I read that this will be if it happens, it'll be the fastest in world history. So that's pretty impressive.
That's what we need right now. That's what we need. 100%
good for civilization. Yeah.
All right, brilliant, buddy. Well, look, have a great afternoon. Look after yourself.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for volunteering your time again. And yeah, really look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks again. Looking forward to the next one. Bye-bye.